Beginning here, you can see that the traditional bottle, empty, doesn't exactly fly very well, which is what you should have right now. And we're going to turn that into a better flying bottle and then hopefully into something that'll do really well as a rocket. You might see our new cat, Blackberry, our new kitten, roaming around as I do this presentation. But you can see first thing I'm doing, all of you should have clay in the bag that you were supposed to pick up. And that empty bottle, you will try to balance the clay, filling in the clay in the top part of that bottle so that it will be balanced. You'll see how we could test that coming up. But what you need to do is make sure that the clay is not unbalanced in any way. So the clay should be nice and smooth. It should be kind of the same thickness all around. If I spin it, it doesn't kind of wobble. You may have seen my very first video, it was kind of wobbling. This is a smaller amount of clay. It should spin nice. It should stand nicely. It shouldn't have any wobble to it. That would be the first indication that something is unbalanced if it has some sort of a wobble as it moves. Now, it won't necessarily spin while it's flying, but as I test it out, the other thing that I want to consider is what sort of fins do I want to have on my rocket. The first rockets were spinning a lot. This rocket, we don't necessarily want it to spin, although if you choose to have it spin, you might put your the fins at a different angle. We might talk about that a little bit. But if I wanted to put my fins at an angle, that would possibly give me the opportunity to make a spinning rocket, which you can also test and see if that does a better job of stabilizing the flight of the rocket. But right now I'm just going to make some basic fins. I'm using Scotch tape. You will have masking tape. It'll do the same job. When you're in school, I will have access to Scotch tape as well. But for the time being, I think the masking tape will be fine because it's easy to rip. You may just have a typical fin like that. It's not very sturdy, but it might do the job. This is just the most basic rocket design that I'm making at the moment. You'll see that I will tape, there's kind of an open spot in that index card, so I'm going to tape that shut just to keep the air from getting in. We want to decrease drag as much as possible, so an open fin like that would certainly work to increase the drag on the rocket. I will put the next two cards fins on. We have a choice. We can do 2 fins. That kind of work like wings. We could do 3 fins. That's kind of the minimum for most sorts of rockets. You could do 4 fins. You could do 5 fins. A lot of this is going to be just testing. Remember, we're designing, we're thinking, we're testing, and then we're improving. My first idea here, my first step is going to be something fairly basic. I'm just taping down. We'll start with 2 wings that are on opposite sides of the rocket. That should keep the rocket from spinning. In my particular case, I'm not choosing to have a rocket that spins. Although, as you may remember, I did show you one student last year made a rocket that spun, and it actually did a very good job. And there are actually some designs for spinning rockets to carry payloads into space. The spin is supposed to make the rocket more stable. Of course, if you have people in there, they would not survive at the speeds that these rockets spin. You'd be talking about, too much for a person to be able to handle. But a payload, something like they just sent up recently on the rocket that I was supposed to see on last week. They were supposed to be sending up a new toilet to the International Space Station. A toilet could probably handle that spin, while a human would not be able to handle that spin. Now, again, I'm trying to reduce my drag. I'm smoothing the front part of that fin. I'm trying to keep the air from getting into my space there that's opened up when I cut that fin to make it pointier. We don't even know if that pointy fin is going to be better than a good old rectangular fin, which is how I'm putting them onto the rocket. So we really can't be sure how any of this is going to work until we test it. I'm going to make 3 pointy fins for this rocket. We'll give that a try, but I definitely can't guarantee that this is the best design. It's just a design that we're going to test. I don't actually have the ability to test it on my rocket launcher at the moment because it's dark outside and you wouldn't be able to see it, as you could see in my very first video. But we are going to see what we can do in terms of just throwing it and see if it'll have a more stable flight. The original 2 throws at the beginning of this video, the rocket or the bottle did not fly very far or very stably. And we're going to see with these 3 fins and the increase in mass in the front if that will actually make a difference, which what you may have gathered so far from the projectile motion activity, especially as well as the paper airplane experiments, that this might be at least some steps in the right direction. And with that, we have the fins. They're on fairly stably. We're going to give this a try outside. And you'll be able to see that with these 3 fins, I'm double checking to make sure they're taped properly. The rocket is flying in a straighter trajectory. That's good.